Hello everybody, welcome back to High Ground. My name is Tanner, and today we're going to be going over some roster changes and some roster change rumors. I'm here on Liquipedia. I'll link this down in the description, and you can go check this out on your own if you want. Follow along or check this out after I finish the video, or keep it for your future reference, whatever you want to do. Okay, so starting with the official roster changes that we do know, and a lot of the players here are like leaving a team, but we'll see in the rumor section which team it is speculated or rumored that they'll be joining. So first up is Fantasy, and I'm going to skip over a ton of these that aren't really high profile names, but okay, yeah, starting with Fantasy, departing W7M Academy. Keep in mind, not the actual W7M roster, going to, well, nowhere, but again, we'll see him in a little bit. We have Muzi leaving Ninjas in Pajamas. This is a really big one. He's been on that roster for a long time, and I guess that team hasn't made a change in quite a while. But it looks like they do need it. They've been struggling. They've been known as maybe the most feast or famine team of all time. Like, we've seen so many times they're at the absolute top of the league, top of international competition. Sometimes they are the bottom of the barrel, cannot win, hardly any games in their region, whatever. For the last little while, despite their inconsistency as a team, Muzi has generally been their best player. So him leaving the roster, it seems like it's his choice, and he wants to, pursue better opportunities somewhere that he thinks that he can actually win. So we'll have to see. And then Fantasy, I guess I skimmed over him a little bit. Used to play on Furia for quite some time, and never a super successful roster, but he was always sort of their star player, the player that everybody had their eye on, because sometimes he made some spectacular plays, and he probably also had some spectacular fails. We'll see how he fares on a new team that we'll again get to in a little bit. So skipping over a bunch of these because I don't really recognize a ton of the names, a lot of not T1 stuff or obscure region stuff. Lenda and Kizzy being dropped from the E1 staff as the analyst and coach. Then Packbull and Dream being dropped. These are some big ones. Packbull being dropped from Wild, not a very successful team this stage. They were good before when they had aces, but it sort of remains to be seen. I think the jury is still out on what the deal is with that. But no doubt that they were a pretty bad team this last stage. We'll have to see. I think a lot of people have actually questioned the how good of an org Wild is, but I don't think that's something we're going to go in depth on here. And then Dream leaving Oxygen. He was one of the two longest standing members on the roster currently, along with Newers. Now I guess Newers will alone carry that torch, and yeah, we'll see his replacement way at the end. I think it's like the very last change we have rumored. And maybe I'll talk about this now. I think a lot of teams are going in this direction, and they have been. It's not just a super recent development where they want to drop very support-oriented players to pick up not very support-oriented players, or at least less supporting players. They want more fraggers, basically. They want people that are frag capable, and then maybe you have like one guy on the team who is a support player, but even that player, you generally want them to be able to clutch or kill or both. Like BDS is a prime example. They have Yuzis, Solotov, Shaiko, and Likafak, four incredible players, four incredible fraggers, and then they also have Bride, who's a decent fragger in his own right, known for clutches, known for plants, but also known for kills, and he does pretty much all the supportive stuff with a little bit of assistance from one of the other players in any given round, whatever they need. But yeah, four absolute fraggers, and then one guy to do all the support work you need, but again, still frag capable. And yeah, we'll maybe talk about that again later when we see Dream's replacement. Maybe Wild's going to go for that sort of thing as well. Packbull, a pretty heavy support player, but I think I'm not sure about this most recent stage. The stage before this, his numbers were pretty solid though across the board. Midi departing whatever this team is. This is Raza Company. I heard speculation, but I don't remember if I saw it on there that Muzi is going to this team, and this is Raza is a Brazilian, big time Brazilian Rainbow Six streamer, and this is just sort of a spotlight team for up and coming talent, or talent in the market for revitalization, whatever. It's just there's some big names on the roster from time to time. Anyways, he's going over to D+, over to South Korea, following in the footsteps of Fabian. Maybe we'll see a little bit of a duking out of that sort to fairly high priority names. One massive, not high priority, high profile names, Fabian, and maybe you don't know Midi, but still, I think it's a name that people know for sure, even if not everybody knows them. Then we have, I don't know, Twist and Aimkey. I recognize the names because they are from North America. Twist non-zero number of Pro League stages under his belt, but I think that's just about it. We have Kanto departing Wild. We'll have to see if this means retirement for Kanto. I don't know that many more teams are going to be interested in him. He hasn't been great as of late. He did have the one pretty solid stage on Into the Breach. Unfortunately, they didn't qualify for the major that stage, but he did have a good stage as an individual, and they had a decent stage as a team, and now they've even built on that with the new roster changes they've made. And yeah, that does it for the actual transfers. Let's go look at some rumors now. Okay, so let's go to not the very bottom, but let's go back in time a little bit. So yeah, Ivan and Toski, these two players did play on Cruelty at the major, and then Grixer did sub in for Geo in the LCQ for North America, and these are the last confirmed ones. So now we have new stuff starting back in the 21st of May. Virtue on here twice for some reason. I guess they're not sure if he's just being dropped and maybe going to another team, or if he's being dropped and or choosing to leave to retire. So I guess it's deemed more likely that he'll be retiring than not retiring, but we'll have to see. The options are open. And yeah, G2 is a massive one to talk about. Not the only change they'll be making on here. And Virtue has been on the team. I think he's the longest standing G2 member. He's been there for a long time now. Probably one of the longest standing players on any team in the world, I think. Maybe not the absolute longest. You have the likes of, Nesk and Palu, but still one of the longest standing. I think Fultz is another one that's been on a team for a long time. I think they just announced he's been with SSG for 5 years. Anyways, we'll talk about G2 a little bit more in a minute. A bunch of changes for Brazil, and a lot of Brazilian individuals are saying this is like the biggest transfer period of all time for Brazil, and it is shaping up that way. We'll have to see if there's a few key changes yet to be announced that are really influencing that, though. So Ninjas of Pajamas, a really big one here. Wizard also departing the roster. We saw Muzi leave, and now Wizard rumored to be leaving. Fantasy and Hates coming in. So yeah, this is where Fantasy is going, and then Hates coming over from Vivo Keatstars. Keatstars, they're making a few changes as well. We see Hornetau also leaving, going to Black Dragons. We see Loira leaving Black Dragons to go to G2. So a lot of shuffling, a lot of Brazilian players going to different Brazilian teams, or coming from EU or going to EU, whatever. Just a lot of tier 1 shuffling of some of the top Brazilian talent. Yeah, anyways, we'll have to see how this pans out for Ninjas of Pajamas. It does feel like they've needed a change. We'll see if keeping Psycho on the roster is the right move, and it just seemed like he's the kind of player you're not going to drop until he decides to leave. I guess he's just one of the biggest names in Brazilian Siege. He's been on Ninjas of Pajamas forever, and yeah, maybe not looking great these days, but he's not it's not every game you're watching him like you gotta retire. Like, he definitely has his moments still, and there's still more time in the transfer period. We'll see. I don't want to speculate too much beyond what's already on the sheet here. But yeah, Wizard being dropped, he hasn't looked great on Ninjas. I think it's a change that makes sense. This is another case of the dropping a support player for less supportive players. I'm actually not 100% sure on the roles of Hates, but I think certainly he's not as supportive as a player as Wizard is, and then Fantasy by no means. So I guess Fantasy more so replacing Muzi, and Hates more so replacing Wizard, but I guess these changes do make sense with the direction the meta is going. We have some 6 Karma changes. Miracle leaving Secret and coming over, sounds like to Keatstars. But again, neither of these changes fully confirmed. I think the Miracle one was like soft confirmed, though. I thought they actually announced this, but maybe the org didn't actually announce it or something. Somebody talked about it for sure on the timeline beyond it just being a rumor. I heard it was a visa thing. His visa ran out, or he couldn't get it renewed, or whatever the case. And maybe there were some other changes on top of that. Maybe they just weren't happy with him and they're not saying that. They're just saying the visa thing, but he never looked bad. Last stage, him and Groovy and I guess it was Savage, yeah, were really good. And then this last stage, I don't remember how their stats turned out, but I think he was still a pretty reasonable player. And I guess if the rumors continue to be true, then he's going to another, fairly T1 team. I guess Keatstars yet to make a major or whatever, but I think people do recognize the talent on that team. We have Blaz going from GK to G2. A while ago, there was a rumor that Blaz may be joining G2, and I think that was back when Fabian was coaching, and I think that was when they ended up going with Benjamaster instead. And I mean, I guess that really worked out for them. They won the 6th Invitational. We'll talk about Benjamaster more in a moment, though. yeah, Blaz returning to EU. And we'll see. I think people have very mixed opinions on Blaz. Some people think he's just never been fully given a chance because he's been on some pretty mediocre teams. And I think a lot of people think he's maybe a bit of a stat patter, a bit of a baiter. So we'll see now that he's going to be thrown into the absolute limelight on G2. And then we have Loira also joining G2, an exciting prospect from Brazil. G2 gets more Brazilian by the day, joining Alemão, and their coach is also Brazilian. I think a lot of people thought or expected him to be dropped, and we'll see if that's actually happening. And if not, then I guess, yeah, they continue to get more and more Brazilian. It worked out for them at the Six Invitational. You know, Alemão sort of led that team to victory, not the most recent one, but the 2023. We have GDN. He was the coach of Elevate Academy, and this guy used to play on W7M, one of the sort of pioneers of the roster, I guess, on the original W7M roster that was up on the rise before he got replaced by Julio. Going over to coach E1, replacing the coach that we saw dropped earlier. Hornetau leaving Vivo Keystars. So yeah, we have a couple of players leaving Keystars. We have a couple of players seemingly joining Keystars. So yeah, a bunch of shuffling there. I thought they would have been better this last stage. I sort of had them as my dark horse. I didn't necessarily predict they'd make the major, but I thought they would have done a little bit better than they ended up doing. So maybe this is the change that they need to become a top tier team. We'll have to see. And then a ton of changes for Los. And I'm not sure about all of this because Bursa and Rise being dropped makes sense. But then it says there's 4 different players coming on. So are some of these joining the staff? Are there other changes? Are there other players to be dropped? Do they have 7 people on the roster for some reason? I don't know. We'll have to see. I expect that a few more players will be dropped from Los. These are some pretty good names: Live, Wizard, Arthur, STK. Maybe not absolute top of the, not bottom of the barrel players, but not cream of the crop type players either. So we'll see. I mean, this looks like a roster that probably can get more than 1 win in NA, but will they be challenging for a top spot? We'll have to see. And then, yeah, Miracle, like I said, Secret over potentially to Keystars. And then we have some really exciting ones for North Americans, because these are, North American changes, even though I guess the Los ones are, again, technically North American. That is a team playing in the North American League. We have Iconic being dropped, and sad story for Iconic. He's played on a bunch of different teams in T1 at this point: Sonics and Disrupt and Astralis and M80 and now Space Station. And when he joined M80, I don't know what happened to him. It just seemed like maybe it was a team chemistry thing, but now that he was so bad on SSG, he even got to play with J90 and Forest and play under Callout once again, where he played with those guys on Astralis and he was really good. I don't know what happened, but he was just so bad this last stage. Like, just probably one of the worst performances we've ever seen from a player on a really high profile team in a major. Like, just so bad at Manchester. I don't know what happened, but bad enough for him to be dropped. I guess they're not giving him another chance unless this rumor for some reason doesn't pan out. Benjamaster being brought onto the roster. I think this one's really cool. And yeah, so another player departing G2. We saw which players joined, and we saw Virtue leaving, and now Benjamaster, I guess, yeah, the other player leaving. So they're keeping Uno and Doki and Alemão, and then bringing on Loira and Blaz seemingly. But anyways, back to Benjamaster. He joined G2, and G2 was an org that had previously won Six Invitational with totally different players. I guess Fabian was around now as a coach instead of a player. And yeah, they immediately won SI. Now he's joining SSG. Keep in mind, this isn't right before Six Invitational, but still, joining SSG. This is an org that previously won Six Invitational, and they have one holdover in Fultz still on the roster. But besides that, everyone's new. The coach, the players. None of them won Six Invitational before, except for Fultz. And now he's joining them. So is history going to repeat itself? I like to think so. But again, not going directly into the Six Invitational. We do have a stage to play, and then a major to play, and then we'll see if SSG qualifies for Invitational. But I think a really exciting change. He was not very consistent on G2 for the last little while, when before that he was one of the most consistent players in the game. His early time on G2 and his time before that on Heroic, he was really, really consistent, really, really good. Hopefully he finds form again. I like this change. I think it's, even if it doesn't pan out for some reason, I think it's at least, it'll be a fun one to watch. And then finally, we have Hat going from Luminosity over to Oxygen. So this is who is replacing Dream. I think Hat can maybe play some, doesn't necessarily have to play on the very front line. He doesn't have to be in entry. I don't know how they're going to set that up with the likes of Gomez and Newers and Yaga on the roster. But I guess they're going for that 4 spearhead kind of thing with Diaz on all the support ops that they need, and I think that's fine enough. You know, Diaz can play Hibana, he can play Thermite, he can play whatever other supporting operator necessary, and the other guys can go get their frags, and maybe one of them can hang back and support a little bit as well. So we'll have to see how it works out. I think some people are doubting the Dream Drop. I think some people have been asking for it for a while, but for sure, Oxygen needed a change because they missed out on a bunch of majors and SI all in a row. So they missed out on Manchester, and before that they missed out on SI, and before that they missed out on the 2 majors last year. Yeah, they have not been to an event in a while, even though it looked like they were one of the top teams in North America this stage, at least throughout best of ones, and then they just kept missing their chance in playoffs to actually qualify. So maybe this is the sort of change that they need. Yeah, let me know what you guys think. Do you think all of these changes are going to happen? What changes do you want to see in addition to these? Do you think any of these are insane? So yeah, we'll have to see. A lot of them I do want to happen. I think they're cool looking changes. And yeah, I think that's going to do it. So leave a like, leave a sub, and again, leave a comment. I guess there's a ton of stuff to talk about here. I would love to hear any thoughts you have regarding any of it. And that's going to do it for me. I'll catch you guys next time.